Look, baseball is by far my favorite sport. Whether you're up to bat, trying to get a hit, home run, double, triple, get on base, whatever it is, it's one of the most amazing feelings ever. Also, when you're on defense and you make a fantastic play, the crowd goes wild. Man, baseball by far is my favorite sport. Whether you are 6'5" or you are 4'10", baseball has a position for every height, every size, and baseball to me by far treats their players better than both the NFL and the NBA. And so I love baseball. I'm very, very grateful that my mom taught me how to play baseball. She's the one who got me interested. And I'm very grateful that my dad was a coach for the first 4 to 5 years of my life, as well as my mom was a team mom the first 4 5 years of my life. The two of them really supported me playing baseball. I'll never forget my very first game. My dad was the coach. My mom was a team mom. It was T-ball. I was on the Expos, and we played against the A's, and we won 32-14. I was 5 years old, and I still remember the score, still remember the whole thing. Like, baseball is very, very, very important to me. I'm very grateful for my parents for putting me in it and being my coaches and team moms. So originally I started in T-ball, played there for 1 year. Then I moved up to farm the next year, played there for 1 year. Moved up to minors, played there for 1 year. Then the next year I got moved to majors. So the majors is really the first piece that I'll talk about, because everything else, you're really young. But majors was really important. You had to have a tryout, and then you get drafted by a majors team. And so I got drafted to a team called the Braves, and it was like a really big accomplishment for a 9-year-old to get drafted to the majors. And I was really excited. However, as I started playing, it was my first time learning that, hey, you are no longer in, in the minors or in T-ball or farmer anymore. Now you actually get to sit the bench. And so I sat the bench for the first time in my life in majors that first year. And I learned a lot of lessons in the sense that you still have to cheer on your team, even if you are not happy with the situation that you're in. I had to learn that at 9 years old, sitting behind a bunch of other players that were probably better, definitely bigger, stronger. But when you are in majors, you have to stay with that team until you finish your majors. So they drafted me saying, hey, we're not really drafting you for this year. We're drafting you for the future years. And so that first year I had to learn how to sit the bench. Didn't like it, but I learned a lot. We actually wound up winning the championship that year. That just goes to show that that team was a really great team. I did not have a lot to do with that. That had to do a lot with a guy named JJ, who also went to All-Stars. So when you are in minors, you have the Little League World Series. You have the 11 and 12-year-olds, which is on the older team, and you have the 9 and 10-year-olds, which is on the younger team. I wound up making the 9 and 10-year-old All-Star team. JJ was on the 11 and 12-year-old All-Star team. And so we were on different All-Star teams, different divisions. But at the end of the day, we're both Braves. We were both champions. And so I learned how to not just sit the bench, be a champion, but then also got exposed to the All-Star games, which was really great. I never really made it too far in All-Stars, never made out the first division. We had a very stacked division. There was a lot more teams in Southern California than some of these other teams around the country. But all I know is I was with the Braves for 4 years. I made All-Stars all 4 years, and it was a great experience. We won the championship my first year under JJ, and then we won the championship my last year where I was one of the main pieces. It wasn't just me. We also had Jeff Pedregon. We also had Albert Enriquez. We also had Kyle Rodman. We had a pretty good team. And so I learned a lot in majors. And then from majors at 12 years old, that's when I started playing junior high ball. But before I get into junior high ball, I had did analysis of what teams drafted which players. And so I got drafted to the Braves, and the coach was very Republican. I was one of the few black kids that was chosen on that team. I think I was chosen mostly because of the foundation that my parents had. My parents were coaches. My mom was a team mom. So I was looked at as a good child. My grades were high. And so the Republicans always chose me. The Braves chose me. Whereas some of the more Democratic coaches, like the Dodgers in my little league, they chose mostly the black kids with talent. So they were way faster. They played more spectacular ball, whereas the Braves, we played more just, fundamentals, get it done, work hard. Didn't really care about how good we looked with the jerseys. And so I realize now that at a young age, we were being bred through baseball to choose Democrat versus Republican. And we didn't even realize it at the time. But now looking back, it's actually very, very important. If you are a parent and you are trying to put your kids in Little League or any type of sport whatsoever, you want to make sure that you are listening to the other parents, getting involved, understanding them, because now that I'm older, I see it from a very different perspective. Whether Republican, Democrat doesn't really matter, but the ideologies of choosing a player based off of his family versus off of his talent, they're two very different things. And a lot of the players that got drafted based off their talent, a lot of them wind up not going that far because they didn't have a good mental base. They didn't have a good work ethic or anything like that. So if you are one of those kids that are extremely talented, you don't have a foundation, man, make sure you try to find a foundation. Try to find a coach that wants to work with you. Try to stay focused because not every single coach is going to develop you into the player that you can become. A lot of them are just going to use you for your talent and keep pushing. And if you are one of those players that has a great foundation, man, find some of those spectacular players and work out with them. Try to push them as great as they can be because they can do things that you probably physically can't do. And if you are learning from them, you are going to not only push them, but they're going to push you as well. And Deion Sanders, the head coach of the University of Colorado's football team, he had mentioned that. He had said, man, when it comes to trying to find a quarterback, he wants to find a quarterback that has a great foundational family, a mother and a father who taught them well. But when he's looking for certain defensive players, he's looking for them to not have a family structure. He's looking for them to be hungry, to go after quarterbacks so that, they can get a house for mama and things of that type. So whether fair or not, that's the way of the world. Scouts look at your family structure. Coaches look at your family structure. Military looks at your family structure. Police look at your family structure. Judges look at your family structure. As well as when you're trying to find a spouse or have a family with somebody, they look at your family structure. And so when it comes to trying to be great, when it comes to you pursuing a sport, baseball, football, basketball, whatever, I think it's really important that you have that type of balance where you have a balance between experienced versus unexperienced. You have balance between talent versus extremely just hard working. Of course, you want everybody to work hard, but you want that balance between extremely, extremely talented and extremely, extremely hard worker. You want to make sure you have some that came from a great family foundation, maybe some that came from a very difficult place, because you can learn from everybody. And to have that balance is going to help you out as you pursue sports, because as you grow older, you're going to deal with a bunch of types of people. You're going to deal with people from different economic backgrounds, different location backgrounds, different ethnicities, different races, all types of stuff. And so you want to learn how to diversify yourself when you're young. And I'm grateful that baseball exposed me to this. But back to the story. So in junior high, this was the first time I ever let my grades slip. And I actually got kicked off the baseball team because my grades got so low. Granted, I had hurt my shoulder. And so I felt like, well, if I can't play baseball anymore, grades don't really matter. And there was a lot going on at home. There was a lot going on at the school. And so for anybody listening to this, just do not keep your identity in baseball. This concept is going to pop up later on in my story. But I essentially had my entire identity wrapped up in baseball. And when baseball wasn't there, my whole life structure kind of just got destroyed. And so I went from Loma Linda Academy, where I played baseball, to Carter High School, where I played baseball, and I made the freshman team. A lot of those players from the freshman team I'm still friends with. We bonded, and the camaraderie aspect of baseball is what I miss the most. Having a team full of people that are all focused on one goal, and you call each other out. Whether you get upset with each other and fight in the locker room, doesn't matter. You always do it behind closed doors, because at the end of the day, you want to win, you want to look good, you want to get the trophy, and all of those types of accolades. And so a lot of my friends that freshman year are still my friends to this day. The next year, I moved up to JV, where we won the championship. Shout outs to Adrian Gameros and Eric Ramos. That whole team was really great. And then after the championship, I got moved up to varsity for the playoffs. And that was a great experience. So our team did not win playoffs, but I still got to go and experience it. Shout outs to AJ Nichols and Leroy Trahan. It was just a great experience being able to see the next level playing. And so then that junior year, I did get moved up to varsity, and I did get a lot of playing time. However, I was still sitting behind a senior. Personally, I believe as the year went on, I got better than him. But as a coach, if you've had a starter since their freshman year, they started their freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and they were a star their first and second years, even though he was tapering off, it kind of would have been disrespectful to have him sit his senior year, especially in the playoffs. So I understood what that was. My senior year, my Coach Russell, retired. Unfortunately, he was the greatest coach ever that I've probably ever had in terms of like a system. We used to work out. We used to work on the field. He used to have us on top of our grades. Coach Russell was probably the best coach I've ever witnessed in any level of coaching. But he retired, and so we had a different coach my senior year. We didn't get along at all. He's actually the reason that the name numbers guy comes into play, because he hated that I was a numbers guy. I'm an accountant. I wasn't an accountant at the time, but I was in AP calculus, and he hated anything to do with numbers. He threw up my head a couple times. Me and him didn't get along at all. Sat me on the bench during important games, put me as last batter a lot of games. I didn't like him at all. He had a short man complex, and me and him were about the same height, and I just felt like he hated me the whole time. So definitely got through my senior year looking forward to college. Also on the side, as I played travel ball such as SEBA and MVP baseball. When I was playing with MVP, we went to both Italy and Australia. I don't want to say they were the national U.S. teams. We were just a travel ball team, but we represented the USA. And I definitely remember being up to bat the first time and just hearing so many boos when they were talking about up to bat, Charles Kelly for Team USA. Boo. Man, that got me motivated. I love going against the crowd, love getting hits overseas. Italy, I got sick, and so I didn't perform too well. But Australia, I performed great, and the coach said, hey, you're definitely the MVP of this team, of this tournament. So I played very, very, very well in Australia. Unfortunately, only to come back and find out that my house had been broken into. But nonetheless, the experience in Australia was magnificent. And I suggest that anybody who's trying to play at a competitive level past high school, you should definitely join some type of travel ball team and learn from experienced players. Play with the best of the best, because high school is not really designed to make you into the best player. It's designed to bring championships to that team. But if you go to a separate league that's travel ball, they can develop you as a player. So I highly suggest that. And then also there's some downfalls that I experienced in high school. So I've given a shout out to Adrian Gameros. That's my guy. But he was falsely accused of murder when we were in high school, and he had to sit out his entire senior year. Never got to play his senior year on varsity. Of course, we would have been competing. So I guess on one side that helped me out, but I never wanted it to be like that. I wanted to beat him and have him know that I beat him, not just win by default. I personally believe I would have won anyway, but nonetheless, he didn't even get a chance to play his senior year because he was falsely accused of murder. So if anybody's listening to this, just make sure that you surround yourself by good people, whether you're at school, whether you're on a team, whether you're out playing, having good friends, good time with friends, whatever you're doing, just make sure you surround yourself by good people. Try to stay out of trouble as much as possible. Doing things for clout is really detrimental to yourself the vast majority of the times. So try to just stay focused. Adrian Gameros is my friend. However, it really made me sad to see that we wouldn't even be competing that senior year because, I was really looking forward to competing against him and enjoying, just his presence. And then also we had a guy named Larry Caldwell who was probably the most talented player out of anybody else out of my whole 4 years in high school. But once again, he started hanging out with the wrong crowd, did some things that were detrimental to his own career. And even though he had been drafted to, I think, 3 different Major League Baseball teams, given a lot of different scholarships, he never played because he wound up getting arrested, and it all just went downhill from there. And so you had me, who was, I guess I was one of the top players, but I definitely wasn't the best. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the biggest by far. But because I was able to stay focused, I was able to work hard, I wound up taking a Division I baseball role at Texas Southern University. I'd had 12 baseball scholarships, but they were all partial. $5,000 scholarship when tuition $50,000 isn't to me a real scholarship. So even though I had 12 of them, in my mind I only really had 2. And so I took the one full ride academic scholarship, not baseball, and went to Texas Southern University. The downside to that was because it wasn't a baseball scholarship, my baseball injury that came from junior high, it flared up again, never got better, and they refused to pay for the surgery because I wasn't on baseball scholarship. And so my baseball career ended after 2 years in college because, hey, I couldn't even throw the ball from second base to first base anymore. So whether you could say the coach cut me or I quit, it's a great area, but either way, the experience of playing baseball ended. So I played from age 5 all the way up to 20. Definitely more pros than cons, way more pros than cons, like 90% pros, 10% cons. I'm grateful to my mom for introducing me, being my team mom. I'm grateful for my dad for coaching me for all those years and directing me and giving me that foundation to be able to be great. And traveling, playing Division I baseball is definitely an experience that I'll never forget. Italy, Australia, never forget. So thank you guys. CJ the Smart Guy. I'm out. Deuce.